Hello, I'm Steve Sines with Urban Explorers TV. I'm here at the Blue Heron Nature Preserve in Buckhead, and we're right next to Nancy Creek, and today I'm joined by Nikki Belmonte, who is the Executive Director of the Atlanta Audubon Society. Welcome, Nikki.
Thanks so much for having me, Steve.
Well, we're really delighted to be here and glad to be doing this show on the Audubon Society as well as the Brown-headed Nuthatch, which we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. But would you mind giving us a little background on the Atlanta Audubon Society and what it's about and what you all do?
Sure. So Atlanta Audubon Society has been a group since 1972, but in fact our history stems back to 1926 when the group was named the Atlanta Bird Club. And over time, volunteers decided to change the name to Atlanta Audubon Society, joining the national effort with the National Audubon Society. So we are the Atlanta chapter of National Audubon Society. All the work that we do here is to protect Georgia's birds and their habitats through education, through conservation, and advocacy.
Not everybody knows about the work that Audubon does. Why do birds matter?
What a great question. Birds play a huge role in our day-to-day lives. You may be surprised to hear that 46 million people in the United States consider themselves bird watchers.
Really?
Yet, we have declining populations all across the country. So there's this gap in understanding that the way we act, the way humans act every day impacts bird populations. They're important for ecosystems. They're right in the middle of the food chain. They're ecosystem engineers. They help control pests. I mean, the list goes on.
Yeah, you know, this is one of those things that in an urban environment, when you're living in a city, life is so hectic, you almost take the birds for granted.
I mean, I think you've noticed while we've been talking today on and off set, we've been listening to the birds that are all around us. Yes. And that's just as invigorating as actually seeing the bird. It can become part of your daily life that you're always listening and you become awakened to the nature that's around you.
So the brown-headed nuthatch was deemed our species of focus for 2015. Being from the Midwest, I'd only seen it a few times when visiting the South, and I was very excited that this was going to be a species I was going to learn more about. They're endemic to the southeast, so they're from Virginia down to Florida and then westward to Texas and kind of everywhere in that little corridor. They're 4 inches long. They have a cute little noise that sounds like a squeaky toy is their way to communicate with each other. And they're reliant on pine habitat. So historically down here in the southeast, they would like these large swaths of pine trees, fire-dependent areas, but you can still find them in urban centers. Anywhere that there's a pine tree, you're likely to encounter a brown-headed nuthatch.
So apparently there's a problem. I mean, their numbers are diminishing. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, despite the fact that they still are present, especially in Atlanta, which seems to be a hotbed, this North Georgia area, we're doing pretty well with our nuthatches, but they are declining here and they're declining across their whole range. So it's estimated around 2% of these birds, or their population is declining by 2% every year. Now that does not sound that bad, except for you have to realize that's been occurring for 20, 30, 40 years consecutively. So their numbers are really plummeting. And primarily that's happening because they're losing their cavity space. They're losing where they can nest.
Cavity space meaning it's a hollow tree?
Yes, so like I mentioned, these birds like to forage in pine trees. They're often easier to hear than they are to see. They like to be 40, 50, 60 feet up in a mature pine tree, but then they come down low to seek out those cavities, those openings in dead trees that have been made naturally or by woodpeckers. And yeah, those are becoming less common because of urbanization, as we see here in Atlanta all the time. It's a large city that's ever growing. The way that we handle our pine trees, so there's been lots of mature forests that have been cut down for lumber plantations, and the nuthatches can feed in those trees. They have the pine trees, they have their food source, they just don't have the old dead trees to provide their nesting habitat. And then on top of all that is climate change, which is definitely a big issue for this species.
Talk a little bit more about that climate change effect.
Yeah, so these birds are sedentary, they don't migrate, they live in the southeast year-round. And so they need certain conditions for their winter habitat and their summer breeding habitat to kind of be wrapped up in the same location. Mm-hmm. And the National Audubon Society came out with a big climate initiative or climate report last year. And from their models, they expect that the brown-headed nuthatch, if nothing changes, if we don't do anything about this issue, could lose up to 95% of their breeding habitat by 2080. So the trees that they need for their winter will be here. Mm-hmm. There'll be the pine cones, they can get their seeds, they can survive. But the conditions they need for their cavities and for the summer will be gone, and that will be a limiting factor for this species.
Okay, to recap then, the cumulative effect of deforestation and the disappearance of the habitat is taking its toll on this particular bird. And you said, I believe you said, that the bird likes to forage up high, but it will nest down low, which I understand has introduced kind of an opportunity because it also takes to a man-made box and will nest in a man-made box. Is that right?
Yeah, so you're right. The brown-headed nuthatches will take very well to these man-made boxes. This is a box that we sell with the Atlanta Audubon Society. It's locally sourced wood, and it's very similar to the boxes used by eastern bluebirds. That was a species that was experiencing a very steep decline in their population all across the eastern United States, and someone very smart decided to put up these boxes, and their numbers have really turned around. So we're going for the same effect with our brown-headed nuthatches. If you have used an eastern bluebird box before, or if you've heard about them, the same dimensions work really well for our brown-headed nuthatches, except for the opening. They're a smaller bird. They like a smaller opening that also excludes other species that might come in and kind of bully them out, like a bluebird, actually.
Anything else you want to talk about in terms of the brown-headed nuthatch?
They're just really an amazing bird, and like I said earlier, they're our bird. They're a bird of the southeast. They're so unique in that they use tools to pry open bark. They sound like these little dog toys that are so neat, and it's really neat that they are resilient. You know, they're doing the best they can in what we're giving them, and they're still declining, and we can help them and turn this around by using these nest boxes.
Well, it sounds like a worthwhile project.
Great.
Well, again, welcome to Atlanta. We look forward to spending more time with you, Adam.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
This
for
was
your
great.
time. So Nikki, what are some things that people can do if they want to get involved and they want to help?
Well, specifically to the brown-headed nuthatch, I highly recommend everybody go to our website and purchase one of our brown-headed nuthatch nest boxes. These boxes have been designed custom for the brown-headed nuthatch. They have the 1-inch hole that excludes many other species, and you can get them on our website and we'll ship it to you, or you can stop by our office and pick them up. They're $35 each.
Okay, that's great.
But some other things, I really encourage people to get to know us a little bit more by visiting us on a field trip or taking part in one of our workshops. We do workshops all year round, and again, information about that is on our website. And then if you really are starting to get the bug and you care about birds, I really encourage you to join us as a member. Atlanta Audubon has a little over 800 members, and we've been 800 members strong for quite a long time. So I highly recommend people check us out on our website and learn about the different levels that they can get involved.
Good. Well, I'm starting to get the bug, so I might be a member
Great.
pretty soon. Hopefully we can get some other people too. Well, thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure. I'm glad we got a chance to spend some time out here. Thanks for the hospitality in this beautiful backyard of yours, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
Great. Thanks so much, Steve.
This is Steve Sines with Urban Explorers TV. Thanks for joining us. We'll look forward to seeing you on another episode.